Now we're going to talk about scatter plots and bubble charts. These are charts that show the relationship between two or more variables. A scatter plot is one where we're just showing the position of a given observation on two variables. So here we have travel time in hours to get to New Zealand, and here we have the median length of stay in New Zealand. This is back to the tourism data showing international visitors. If each of these markers for the different countries were the same size, it would be a scatter plot. What makes this a bubble chart is we're bringing in a third piece of information. Besides travel time in hours and length of stay, we're bringing in the number of visitors. So the size of the bubble is proportionate to that, with Australia being the biggest number of visitors at 1.4 million, and Canada being the smallest at just under 60,000, at least of the countries shown here. So that lets us show three um, pieces of data. We could even show more variables if we vary the color and the size of the marker, or we can even add a pattern to get a fifth. So what I mean by this, here what we're trying to look at is the association between travel time and median length of stay. In other words, if it takes you longer to get to New Zealand, do you stay longer once you get here? And if we look at this pattern, we do see that it's the general upward trend. So we remember when we talked about correlations that suggests that they do seem to be correlated, but we also remember that it's not a perfect correlation. They're not following a perfect line. It's kind of the general direction of a line, but not perfect. So if we wanted to add additional variables to explain why that might be, we already do have the size of the dot to see if that makes a difference. But we could add other things if we wanted to too. So for example, we can see here that the UK and Germany have the longest travel time in hours, and they tend to have the longest length of stay too. But we might know, for example, that they also tend to have more vacation time than places like South Korea and Japan. So if we wanted to, we could use something like color to signify the length of vacation time. If we did want to use pattern as well, that could allow us to bring in an additional variable as well, maybe something like disposable income or something like that. So bubble charts are very powerful in that sense, in that we can provide a lot of information in just one display. But some things to be aware of with those is that research that investigated how well people interpret charts shows that bubble charts are one of the most difficult for people to interpret. So this is a good time to really think about your audience and think about their familiarity with charts in general, and whether this would be a good display for them or not. Bubble charts also work best when the number of points being plotted is fairly small. So we can see here that it's not a huge number of countries that we're showing, and yet already we're getting some overlap between South Korea and Japan. You can imagine how much worse this would be if we were trying to show every single country on here. If we were trying to show a much larger number of countries, then a scatter plot would be a better way to go, especially if what we were interested in is the overall pattern. For example, how strong is the association between travel time and hours and median length of stay, as opposed to being able to pick out specific countries as we can do here.